Hey everyone, welcome to the ZED, the Zoomer Book Club. Tonight I'm thrilled to have Nita Prose, the author of our February book club pick, The Maid, on to talk to us about her crazy good novel, which made us laugh and cry and captured the imagination of the world and introduced us to one of the quirkiest characters that I can remember in recent modern murder mysteries, Molly the Maid. This is her first novel, and it's made the bestseller list in the US, UK, and Canada. And it's being made into a movie starring Florence Pugh, who will be Molly the Maid. Before that, when it was just a manuscript, there was a six-way bidding war for the publishing rights. As Nita Prose, sorry, is that correct, Nita?
It's pretty close. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Pronovo.
Pronovo, the vice president and editorial director of the publishing house Simon & Schuster Canada. She's edited some of the biggest names in the crime and mystery genre, including Ruth Ware and Liz Nugent in the UK, and Linwood Barclay and Amy Stewart here at home. We're thrilled to have her here tonight to talk about her level of murder mystery with a big heart and quite a few eggs, but we'll get to those later. Welcome, Nita.
Thank you so much, Kim. What a fun introduction.
I did want to ask you, because I'm very curious about the pen name thing. So, you know, I love that you chose Prose as your pen name. That's very cute. But I have to ask you what it's like to have two names, especially now that this has gotten so big. You know, how does that even work? Like, how do you check into hotels, and how do you get royalty checks, and does it ever trip you up?
No, it doesn't trip me up. It's, you know, it's funny because I chose Prose, well, for the obvious reason, because I'm a writer, but also because it's like a little shorthand that people call me by. So at work, you know, people will say, hey, Prose, can you look at this copy? Hey, Prose, have you checked out that latest acquisition? I just started reading it. Hey, Prose, come to my desk for a second. So it just, you know, that's how I chose my Twitter handle long ago. I'm like, I'll just shorten my name, because as you just saw, it's a very difficult name to pronounce and even more difficult to spell. And it doesn't fit nicely on a book cover. So for all of that panoply of reasons, I chose Prose.
Okay, so it doesn't trip you up because you're used to being called that. That's great. So what surprised you most about The Maid of these three things? The six-way bidding war for the publishing rights, shooting to the top of the New York Times, Sunday Times, and Globe and Mail bestseller list, or selling the movie rights and Florence Pugh taking on the role of Molly?
You're asking for Sophie's choice here, but you've given me triplets to choose from. Like,
you must kill one.
Which darling will it be? I have to say, making it to the top of the New York Times list was, you know, just an absolute dream. And that was, for me, you know, a real pinnacle and highlight moment. But that does not downplay the other two moments, which were also pretty darn okay.
Yeah, for a first novel, like, this is every writer's dream, really. I mean, you accomplished like the triple, I don't know what if they have an EGOT in publishing, but seriously,
yes,
you know, I think you got it.
Yeah, no, I'm feeling pretty good about it. And I must say, every day I still wake up and I'm like, is that really real, or was that a dream? And honestly, I'm not actually making that up. I have to have a moment and go, oh yeah, no, that's real.
And then you have to get up and go to work.
And then I have to get up at a god-awful hour when most normal people are still sanely in bed. And then I start working, yes.
Yes, you start writing work, you mean?
That's right. So I get up at 5 a.m. every morning, and that's when I write. That's how I accomplished this novel while having, you know, a fairly busy day job.
Yeah. So you're doing like 5 a.m., like 6 to 9, work at your other job, and then do the, you know, 7 to 10 sort of thing.
You got it. And then, you know, I rarely take a full day off. On the weekends, I'm usually squirreling away a little bit of time here and there to continue. Yeah.
When was the last time you had a day off?
Well, I did just come back from a holiday.
A
couple of weeks ago, which was really, really refreshing. And I really did turn off. I did not do hardly any work at all. I mean, I might have checked, you know, my emails a couple times. And other than that, I was completely turned off, and it was wonderful. Yeah.
Where did you go?
I went to Mexico, and I just bummed around on a beach and got a whole bunch of vitamin D and feel much better as a result.
And you didn't write a word?
Not a word.
Okay.
Not a word. I don't even think I composed a sane and cogent email.
Okay, so we have, you've described The Maid as a blend of cozy mystery and uplit slash feel good fiction with a little bit of Knives Out and a smattering of Clue. For our non-publishing viewers, what is a cozy mystery?
Well, a cozy mystery means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but I think it might be characterized by that Agatha Christie sense of traditionalism, a lack of violence on the page, which might distinguish it, say, from noir. And there is, very little graphic violence, no blood, and there is a real thrust towards the whodunit. And yet the characters in a cozy, that maybe they don't have giant journeys throughout the book. And, my book is a little bit different because I tried to blend the cozy with, as you just noted, uplifting literature, a genre that I think was, first sort of given its name after Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman, which was really a journey of growth for an individual character who rallies throughout the book and who starts off being quite a cactus and is mostly unlovable. And yet somehow the author convinces us by the end of the book to love that main character.
Sounds familiar. But Molly's lovable from the beginning. She's just very quirky. But the thing is about Eleanor Oliphant is that much like what you've accomplished here, there are some very dark moments in the book. There's child abuse, there's mental illness, and in The Maid, obviously, we have deadbeat dad, runaway mother, grandmother dying, the person who guides Molly in the world. So how can it be uplifting?
Well, that is a good question. And how can it be cozy? Which is a question I often ask when I see that word associated with my book. But that is the trick of it, isn't it? And that for me was part of what kept me waking up in those early hours and trying to see, can I do this? Can I combine these two genres? Can I find the ultimate limit within this nutshell of darkness and light? And can they exist in the same story?
Right. So this may just be my my weirdo mind, but I also wondered if a cozy means that you can avoid the nightmare of writing sex scenes. In The Maid, all we have is Molly saying about the physical parts with Wilbur, that scoundrel. It was all new and different, and it was quite pleasant.
You know what? It is like every writer's nightmare to be on. How there's that list of the worst sex scene that comes out in any given year. Can you imagine winning that dubious award? I mean, it would be the worst thing ever. I just don't think I could ever write a word ever again. So gratefully, I won't be nominated for that because you're right. I have steered away from it in this novel.
So let's talk about Molly, because our book club loved her. Very quirky, and even the syntax. I want to talk to you about the way you write her voice, because it is a very peculiar syntax, as Giselle notes, Mrs. Black #2. It's like she's an older woman, or the Queen even, or I think even Eliza. How did you come up with that, and how did you maintain it? It's like an accent in a movie or something.
Well, that voice literally came to me, and I know you know this story, and probably a lot of other people do, but it is a voice that I heard in my head after meeting a maid in the hotel room and thinking, my gosh, what an intimate and invisible job it is to be a roommate, And so, I was on my plane ride home after a trip and after having stayed in the hotel, and I heard Molly's voice, and it was clean, it was crisp, it was very precise, and literally, and cliche that it is, but I can't change the story because this part is actually not fiction. I wrote that prologue to the book in a single burst on a napkin. And that is how the voice came to me. And then after that, it was really about refining the voice. Molly has, as you say, many quirks. She has a love of cleaning, and she has so much troubles with social cues. And I think, although I wasn't necessarily consciously aware of this at the time, I think I imbued her with, some real life people that I once had the pleasure and the privilege of working with. So before I was an editor, I worked as a teacher, and I worked with special needs students. high school students. And, you know, in that funny way that sometimes happened, I went in one role as the teacher, and I came out absolutely convinced that these kids had taught me more than I had ever taught them. And, you know, one of the things I learned from them was not only the value of the labels in the classroom and, really individualizing programs to meet their learning needs. But when we were outside and I would take them, say, to a field trip or out for lunch or something like that, it was remarkable the casual cruelty they faced, the jibes and the jeers and the backing away, and just incredible insensitivity from so-called normative people. And that never left me. Now, it did come with an associated gift, though, and that gift was the reaction of the students themselves. They always behaved in such situations with such generosity, adaptability, kindness, and this wellspring of strength and courage that just blew my mind. And some of those characteristics, the best characteristics of those students, I think I somehow logged them and I gave them to Molly. I wanted for her weakness to become her greatest strength.
Yeah, it's funny that you say they came from people you knew, because someone just wrote in the chat, Myra, that she loved Molly because she saw elements of people she knew in her, and the same for me. You know, I immediately I know a couple of people on the spectrum, and I know one person who has Asperger's, and it did really remind me, and that was the comment from one of our book club members who was a teacher and a principal as well. But you specifically did not diagnose Molly. So tell us why you decided not to label her.
Well, it was extremely important to me that the reader really not enter the book with any preconceptions or assumptions about what they were about to read. You know, this is a book that's about being the same as everyone else and yet entirely different. And I was really concerned that if I highlighted in the copy or anything around this, the different part, readers wouldn't get the most important part. They would already compartmentalize her, Molly, into the category of other. And the most important part is that we're all the same. And I love that. I love that readers are reaching out to me and saying, this is me, this is my husband, this is my daughter, this is my son, this is my grandmother, this is my so-and-so, insert person X. And I think that speaks to the fact that the Molliness of Molly exists in many of us. I see many facets of myself in her, to be perfectly honest.
That's great. Well, I'm giving a shout out to Andrea, one of our book club members in Maui. It's her 70th birthday today. So if you're out there, Andrea, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
She's an artist, and she was the one of our 3 participants who noticed the colors and the names of the characters. So Chernobyl's green, Mr. Black, Wilbur is brown, Molly is gray, and Mr. Snow is sort of Mr. White. But is there any deeper significance to that?
Well, I think I was playing around with a world that exists in either monochrome tones as extremities of justice. There's the black and the white, and there's the striving of Molly to come to be something in the middle, something in between. But she always sees the world in black and white at the beginning, and her journey really is a movement towards seeing shades of gray. And I think also, you know, you alluded earlier to the board game Clue, which was one of those little fun elements of playfulness that I allowed myself in the book, so that we do have a Mr. So and a Mr. Rosso, and we have that sense of the whodunit and the game board, and that idea of which I, you know, as a kid, I just absolutely loved the 1/3 of a character, a setting, and an object, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And I tried to carry that through so that we ask ourselves throughout, you know, is it the bartender with a rope in the kitchen, or is it the maid with a pillow in the penthouse suite? You know, you have to read to find out, but there's a playfulness in that. And again, it's another signal that while this is a whodunit, there might be something else to it as well.
Well, we also appreciated a lot a couple of things that we thought you accomplished very well. Obviously, the descriptive language or the descriptive writing we thought was really great. The evocative, evoking the sight, all the senses, the sights, the smells. We could hear Molly's tray, the little glasses clinking as she went down the hall. When she comes in the lobby at the beginning, we smell the women's perfume and the leather and the cleaning products. But also it was, and so I do want to talk to you about something I noticed in the writing, which is a lot of writers, it's very difficult, as I know, as just a journalist, to try and come up with an original simile, or to describe something and reach for something interesting that's going to, and I noticed that you definitely did not have any problem avoiding, like, this is like that, or it's as if blah, blah, blah. You really came up with some original things. And I want to ask you in the writing process, do you just hammer it out and then go back and tinker with adjectives and phrases and things like that? How does it work?
Well, I would say that I do a lot of hammering at the beginning, but I don't even allow myself to hammer until I have a good skeleton form. Until I understand the architecture of what I'm doing, I won't actually allow myself to work sentence by sentence or paragraph by paragraph. And yes, so my 5 a.m. stint is really about getting those words on the page. And often by the end of my workday, I'm tired, too tired to create from scratch, but not so tired that I can't go back and refine. And often I'll find, the same words used 7 times in a paragraph in my struggle to find the perfect spot for each little thing. The other thing I'll say about, the gift of a character like Molly is that she cannot use something that somebody else has used. Her point of view, if my job was to live inside her, to really see it and to feel that uniqueness, and that really helps me to, in some ways, heighten cliches through the book, because these are touchstones for her. Right. But in her actual sensory world, how she feels, how she thinks, how she hears and sees, it wasn't that hard a struggle once I really felt myself in her shoes, in her character, to avoid some of those, more common metaphors.
Right. So so I know you've probably told this story a million times about interrupting the maid in your hotel in London, but Nita has told me previously for the story I wrote on our website that she was at the London Book Fair in 2019, before COVID, obviously, and went out for a run, I think, and I'm going to let you tell the rest, because
yes. So I told a sort of truncated version of this story before, but I'm happy to tell it again. So yes, I was at the London Book Fair. It was 2019, and of course, the London Book Fair is this fantastic event. Publishers from all over the world unite there, and editors, and we gather and we gossip and we talk about books, and it's this wonderful thing. So I was leaving the hotel one day, and I was going to a meeting outside the hotel as a kind of a weird hour of the morning, like 10:30 or something. And I came back into my room, and I completely startled the roommate who was cleaning it. And I remember her jumping back into a shadowy corner. And as you said, Kim, and honest to God, I will never do this again, but I had gone for a run that morning, and I had left my sweaty, tangled track pants on a mess on the bed. And that's what she was holding in her hands. And I completely startled her. And I looked at her and I thought, oh my goodness, it is such an intimate and invisible job to be a roommate. She'd been cleaning my room for days. She knew so much about me, and I knew nothing about her. And it was just one of those little moments, those tiny little crystalline diamonds that just lodges. It just sits there. And then a few days later on the plane ride, that's when Molly's voice came. And it was the voice of a maid, obviously not that one, but it was the voice of a maid. And it was like those moments connected and allowed me to create the beginnings of this novel.
Yes, and the other part I love is that it was on the proverbial cocktail napkin, which is also something I love.
It's so patently absurd, but it is true.
Yeah, so I did want to ask you about the architecture. You were talking about the architecture of the book. Obviously, you need an outline, you need to know where you're going, you need a beginning and an end point. So how do you plot it out? Is there a spreadsheet? Because or post-it notes on the wall, because the plot is sort of concentric as Molly reveals more and more detail, but it's all about the same day, but it's as she goes over it first in her head, it's as she's at the police station, it's as she describes it to Rodney, and these things get layered on. So how did you remember what you already revealed and what you hadn't?
Well, that's where the planning comes in. And while I was given this wonderful bolt out of the blue of a character and a setting, the hard work started to happen when I had to sit and figure out what the cast was and what the red herrings were and what the movement was, act to act, moment through moment, day by day, scene by scene. And I consider myself a tentpole writer. And what I mean by that is I need to know the twists and turns and the inciting incidents of each act and of each scene before I will even allow myself to begin the process of writing. So I did know those twists that come at the end. I will not spoil anything, I will not spoil anything, but those twists that come at the end, I knew early on because of my planning. But what I didn't know was how I was going to get there. And so that was a motivating force. To know one thing and not know another was like, okay, now I will wake up early in the morning and I will try to solve each of these little problems until I get there to that next tentpole.
So when you're at a cocktail party, and we always, no matter what profession you're in, you get cornered if it's something like a doctor or a writer, but in your case, you've written this best-selling book and you're an editor. So when you're at a cocktail party and the person, you dread this, they come up and they say, I want to be a writer. What's your number one advice for somebody who wants to write a mystery?
Yes. Well, I always preface this with any writers out there want to be writers, people who are trying the task, is you might not like my answer. And because my answer isn't go get an agent. My answer isn't, listen to your spouse who tells you it's wonderful. That's not my answer. My answer is read. My answer is read voraciously. I have the luxury and privilege of working in this industry and having worked with so many incredible writers who've taught me the craft of narrative, book by book and page by page and novel by novel. But, if you don't have that sort of background, you have to learn that somehow. And it's only through that learning that you're going to gain confidence on the page. And that's going to be what attracts the agents and the publishers and et cetera, et cetera. So when I say read, I mean, read voraciously and widely, read beyond your comfort zone, understand the mechanisms that make fiction work. Take a book apart, understand the skeleton, understand how a scene is put together, what the beginning is, what the turning point is, what the end is, and how that one connects to the next, to the next, to the next. And how concentric circles work in a fictional world. And by really studying what you read, you can learn so much that you can apply to your own work.
So yes, that's true. You do have to read, but the thing is, it's paralyzing. It must be paralyzing. There's so many bazillion books out. Like, I get them on my desk every day and I want to read every single one and I can't. But when I do read them, I just feel like I can't do this because it's been done and it's been done so well. So how, especially for you, how paralyzing was it to think that, you'd already edited all these great manuscripts and you're trying to write your own?
Absolutely. Every author is going to feel that. That's a natural process. And the worst part is that a genre writer is going to feel that even more. So let me just say that, when I turned my hand to mystery, it comes with, a great cargo. And that cargo is, this is a well-trodden genre where everything under the sun has been done before. And so how do you innovate it? That is the major, genre problem that one has to solve when you enter something like the world of the thriller or the world of the romance or the world of the mystery. And for me, the solution came through genre combination, as we talked about before. It came through introducing something slightly different or unexpected to a murder mystery and adding the cozy and the journey aspect, adding a sense of very strong character instead of just cardboard cutout, so that what begins as more of, an outline becomes fully formed through the process. Now, that's what I guess I would encourage other writers to look for, because finally, when it comes to editors and publishers, they are looking for something that wows them and that is original in form. And that is something that every writer is going to need to find their own way.
Right. So now in uplit, obviously it's uplifting. So what is the thing you talked about, how everyone we're all the same but different? Is that the message of the book?
Well, I would never say that, a book is a singular message.
Yes.
It is a collection of messages, and it is so important to allow the reader to make of it what they will. I have readers who do not like my work. I have readers who love my work.
Yeah.
And that is their prerogative. And that is the beauty of reading, is that it is democratic in that way. It is taste driven. Yeah. So that's one of the things I love about the world of fiction.
Yes, but there's my cat in the background.
Hello, kitty.
Got to shut the door. Oh dear. Okay, well, it's home Zoom. What can we say?
Exactly.
I just want to let everyone know there are some people writing in. We will be talking at the end. There's questions at the end from you guys. Also, everyone's asking about sequels, so we'll get to that at the end. We always ask the author what's next at the end, but anyway, we will get there. One of the things that amused us in the book club was some of your turns of phrases. One of our favorites was plume de peste. And I know you told me before you grew up in Quebec. And so I wanted to ask you, is that an actual phrase or is it something you made up?
It's something I made up. I didn't actually grow up in Quebec, but both of my parents are French.
Oh, it was your family.
French was my first language for the first 5 years of my life. But
okay.
Yes. And let me just say that phrase, which is a total corruption of the French language, has been corrected by every copy editor and queried by every translator in 44 countries or something. Like, what is this? This makes no sense to me. And I'm like, okay, well, here we go.
Yeah.
So, Molly is, as you pointed out, her syntax is funny sometimes. She's had this influence of her grandmother, right? This formative figure in her life, and the absence of a mother who would have been closer in age and that one generation step closer to her that might have made a different impact in not only how she views the world, but how she speaks. And so I wanted part of Gran to come alive through the language that Molly uses, so that her presence is literally on the tip of Molly's tongue. And she's also a very ingenious, playful character in many ways. And she has, just an incredible precociousness with language. And yet, like with most things, sometimes everything is just a little off, just a little askew. And so we have plume de peste, which doesn't, literally translate into a diseased pen or a plagued pen in French, but it kind of makes you think that way.
Absolutely. And when we were talking before, you talked about, I was asking you where you got your imagination and like, were you read to as a child and your family. You mentioned that your mom had this incredible gift for telling tall tales. And I want you to tell the one about Eugette.
Sure. So yes, I do not, contrary to what most people would think, I am not from that household that had a library and lots of books on shelves. It wasn't like that. We had Reader's Digest and Funk and Wagnalls and National Geographic, and we got the Toronto Star on Saturdays. But other than that, there weren't a lot of novels lying around the house, the occasional one here and there. My mother, however, is the source of all of my storytelling ability in a lot of profound ways. I don't know if anyone out there or if you, Kim, has seen the movie Big Fish. But in that film, there's a father-son combination. The father is, nearing end of life and trying to reconnect with his son. The son is furious at his father because his father only tells him things in ridiculous tall tales and, this panoply of lies. And then, of course, as we move throughout the movie, we learn, oh, maybe those weren't entire lies after all. And so it is with my mother, who like Gran is gone. So she used to tell me crazy stories. And one of the most crazy was that when she grew up in northern Quebec, and she grew up in a sort of rural area on a hobby farm that was highly unsuccessful. And she had, 9 brothers and sisters. And she did not take a bus to school. She did not walk to school. She rode a pig named You Get to school. So she told me this story repeatedly throughout my lifetime. And of course, as a child, I was fascinated and I would ask for more details and she would fill in all sorts of color. And, as I got older, and wiser, I'd be like, Mom, come on, like, give me a break. There is no You Get pig. This is totally ridiculous. Just tell me you took the bus. Tell me you took the bus. And of course, that never happened. My mother died a few years ago, and I don't know why, but I could never get to the bottom of the You Get story, much like many of her stories. And I asked her sister, my Aunt Suzanne, who has an incredible penchant for cleaning. I asked her, one day when we were talking about my mom, there's this story she used to tell, and I used to get so angry with her about this pig named You Get. And she's like, oh yeah, You Get, the pig we used to ride to school. And I was like, no, it can't be. She's like, yeah. Oh yeah, there was a time when we had this giant pig and she was really quite funny. And, we used to ride her to school. And actually your mom used to throw bread in front of the pig to keep her going because she'd get tired halfway and sit down, and then we couldn't get to school. I couldn't believe it. And now my aunt is a very reliable person. She is not the fiction teller. And that is where, Kim, I get my pension for storytelling.
It's a good one. And the book is dedicated to your mom. And Aunt Suzanne inspired this. Here's a question for you. Is cleanliness next to godliness?
Oh, no, I don't think so. But I'm sure that Molly would disagree wholeheartedly with that conclusion. I really like cleaning when it's done. It is not a pursuit that gives me any joy whatsoever, except when it's over.
Did you dust your office tonight?
No, I most definitely did not. And I'm so glad that you can't really see. You can't tell, right?
No, you can't. Okay, so here's a weird thing. When Molly, and it's even kind of like on the cover, the keyhole, the Canadian cover has a keyhole, and you see a maid sort of that. She's wearing a dress, but Molly doesn't wear a dress, number one. And number two, I thought it was odd that Molly uses a duster because, it's 2022 and we usually use Swiffer hand knit thingies. So what was going on there?
Well, I would say that if you look into this book, there are many anachronisms. And, there's, in my tribute to that glory of the Art Deco era with which we associate the cozy, there are all kinds of things that feel a little bit more traditional. But I kind of tried to blend that with also the contemporary. I mean, there are cell phones in the novel, and yet, Molly has this clipped way of being and speaking, and she's not the only character that does. And that's, it might have a little bit of an older school feeling. So there's this balance of old and new that I'm always trying to keep in the right incline.
Right. And we did talk about this theme of invisibility previously because it does fascinate me. I mean, I thought the first Mrs. Black there was a point where you describe her as the middle-aged woman, which I relate to. It's like this idea that no one sees you after a while, not just even in a sense of attractiveness, but just in sense of like, you're there, you're not even there. And Molly has a uniform, a cloak that she puts on. I think the first Mrs. Black is just, her clothing, it's her clothing at that age. But in addition to the invisibility, I mean, there's a class aspect to the service industry. But it seems like Molly she sort of crosses over that somehow, even though she wasn't raised with her mother, even though her gran was a maid, she's still educated, she speaks well, she can go to college. So why we do have a class divide here. We have very rich people behaving very badly to service people. But it seems a little bit flipped around, because Molly isn't the typical, someone who's stuck in a low income job. She has aspirations. So is that intentional?
Yes, absolutely. I wanted to portray a character who we often associate with, being in a so-called Joe job, and show that she could be incredibly diligent and take pride in a job, and that could be a tribute to the service worker. And I think it's a really classist notion that, somebody in service doesn't actually take their job as a point of pride. But Molly, however, absolutely does. And that mattered to me. It mattered to me a lot. And she's not the only character in the book who really is diligent in the way she goes about her work. And I think, the hierarchy of the hotel, you're absolutely right that I was playing with the upstairs, downstairs feeling of that. And I think hierarchies exist there because there is the illusion of grandeur and elegance and luxury that is created for the guest, who is the highest person on that hierarchy. And that illusion comes on the backs of the work of all of those service workers who are propping it up.
Yes, and there are some, as you noted, many eggs in this book. We noted there were many eggs in this book. There were lots of good eggs. There were lots of bad eggs, actually, and some good eggs. And then there's the Fabergé egg. So one of us, I can't remember who, was like, what's with the eggs? So what is with the eggs?
I don't know. What is with the eggs? Well, when I actually start to think of it, an egg before it's boiled is a very fragile thing and a very beautiful thing too. It can be good, it could be bad, as it can suggest something about character.
Yeah.
It's also one of those sayings, those anachronistic sayings that reminds us of Grant. But there's a fragility to an egg, and it is really about birth and rebirth in some poignant ways as a metaphor. And that is probably why eggs appear over and over in this novel.
Oh, so sorry, just to go back to the upstairs, downstairs, we have Molly, who really at the very beginning, she sort of tentatively tells us that Giselle is her friend, the Mrs. Black #2, who the trophy wife, who also, is not the opposite of invisible, who never gets a private moment. And then we see through Molly's growth what their relationship is really like. So my question to you is, are they really friends?
Oh, I think they are. But I will tell you this, when I started writing Giselle, I didn't think they were going to be. I thought she was going to be a classic backstabbing frenemy, and Giselle surprised me. I grew to empathize with her plight much more than I thought I would, and sort of, weaved in details about her to explain in a way to myself what could make her do the things she does, and to strive for a life that is so limited, that is, as you've noticed, very superficially driven. But in the end, in that trope of invisibility, finally, her true self is entirely invisible. And it is only through escaping Mr. Black and escaping the paradigm of being a kept woman that she will ever have a chance to grow. And that happens outside of the book.
Now I'm going back to eggs. I forgot to ask you, are there Easter eggs in here? And if so, for whom?
Oh, yes, there are. So I'll give away one of my Easter eggs. So at the very end of the book, Juan Manuel, I can't even remember. I have to go back. But Juan Manuel talks about Mexico and his nephew, Teodoro, jumping around on the bed. And, Teodoro is, in my mind, like a little Easter egg, because Theodore is the name of my dog who jumps around on my bed. And so that is the kind of little thing that when you are a writer nearing the end of a novel, You can slip in there for the sole purpose of yourself and your own entertainment.
What about Aunt Suzanne? What's in there for her?
Oh, well, she's all over the place, right? I think it was, I think Gran is my tribute to my mother and to my Aunt Suzanne. These were two formidable matriarchs, and I am lucky to have my aunt who's still with me. And I was so lucky to have my mother. And they were entirely different from Gran in profound ways, but in the most important ways, they were exactly the same, because they understood unconditional love, highly protective of their eggs, like me. And, I benefited greatly from their wisdom. And that's something that I wanted to pass along to the reader in the pages of my book through the character Gran.
Okay, I have a very tough question for you from one of our readers, from Natalie. Who's your favorite Canadian author? Having a publishing background, you probably have more than one, but can you give us some writers you like?
You know what, I can't possibly choose one, but one that that completely knocked my socks off about 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? Maybe 3. You might know Kim, is Ashley O'Drain with her debut novel, The Push. Absolutely extraordinary thriller. She is the kind of writer that I read and go, I will never be as refined, as delicate, as sharp in my scene writing as that very brave woman. So if there is anybody in Canada who's out there and hasn't read The Push yet, it is a startling and brave look at the truth of motherhood and the truth of childhood too. And it is hard to read and every bit worth it.
Now, like you, I think it was just maybe 2 years. It was pandemic times for sure. I remember.
Yeah, I think it was 2020.
Yeah, but it also, like you, Ashley's novel was picked up in a bidding war, was it not? Her first novel?
It most certainly was.
Yeah. And yes, a very good book. And also, I just want to mention that because I saw the video online, I loved Marissa Stapley's book, Lucky, which got picked up by Reese Witherspoon's book club. And I watched the video of you taking her for lunch and telling her that it was the Reese's book club pick, which was the funnest book related video ever. She was thrilled, but that's a great book as well.
It is a beautiful, beautiful road journey about a very troubled soul and who comes out on the other side kind of okay. Yes.
And it also has one of the best first sentences I've read in a long time. Someone left the baby on the church steps or something like that. It's very good. I loved it. Okay, what else did you love?
What else? Emma Donoghue is a writer I turn to over and over again. She always surprises me. She never writes the same book twice.
We had her. She was our first book club guest.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. For Pull of the Stars. Yeah, very exciting.
Oh, yes. So she's amazing. And I marvel at her because of her ability to work in historical fiction and then, contemporary fiction. And that just boggles my mind. Historical fiction, and I work on a lot of historical fiction as an editor. I just bow down. That is another element of, research and working with the facts behind the fiction. It just takes so much stamina and strength from a writer. And I'm always impressed by the writers who do it well.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm actually going to see the play The Room in April. So I'm very excited to see that. And also, she has a new book coming out.
Does she?
Yes, and now I can't remember the name of it. I just saw it go by my eyes the other day, but I'm going to be grabbing that. So someone else has asked, Florence Pugh is going to play Molly in the film, but do you know who the director is? Where are we with the film? What's happening?
So I do not know the director yet. What I can say is, various steps are underway that I cannot talk about. But it's been really wonderful so far. Things are happening, development is happening. And I'm just so excited. I'm excited about the prospect of actually seeing certain aspects of the Maid on the screen. So, you know, one thing that's really important to me as a writer is to ensure that I draw the line in the right way at the right moment so that the reader can participate in the world, but that I don't give so much detail that I've flooded you and you can't use your own imaginations to say, build a picture of the Regency Grand. You know, I give you some pieces, and then my hope is that every reader can fill in their experience of hotels with their own imaginations. And so the difference between, you know, doing that in your own mind and the screen is massive. So the most exciting part for me of watching the Maid come alive, hopefully when it does, hoping, is to see in full Technicolor all of the detail and richness, which of course film offers every last detail, unlike my book.
Yes. And also Florence Pugh is starring in The Wonder, which is the next adaptation of the Emma Donoghue book about the Irish miracle, the girl who lived on air. So yes, everyone's asking about, oh, sorry, someone's asking about The Push. The book is called The Push by Audrey Audrain. Got it. Okay. So yes, everyone's asking, you probably got, oh, I thought you were going to reach for one and show
I
them.
think I'm pretty sure I have it right now. Yeah, it looks like this. Yeah, here it is. I knew I had it in my stack.
We got the demo.
Here it is.
Yay, there it is. Okay, good.
The Push.
Yay.
Ashley Audrain.
Okay. So now everybody's asking, what's next? What's the next? What's next? So I will just tell everyone that initially you told Quill and Choir the next book was called Mrs. Nobody, but when I asked you about that in December and suggested it was about Mrs. Black number 1, you were cagey, just like most writers who are asked what they're working on. Is that a superstition thing? Or is it just a secret, like I don't want to let out any details because then it won't be a surprise?
It's the, you know, I don't know what it is for other writers, but for me, it's until I absolutely know that I can make it to the end of the story, I don't want to fully commit to what it is I'm going to complete next. It is such a leap of faith to write. It's not easy. And when you're halfway through or even a quarter through or 2 chapters through, it is daunting. And you really aren't, well, I'm not particularly certain how far I'm going to make it to the end. I mean, I was very impressed by your observation though. And, you know, you notice something, you notice that the invisibility of middle-aged women is something that interests me greatly. And that, you know, I know I am going to be writing about more in the future. So all that being said, what I'm writing about next, I have a few ideas on the go at the moment. So yeah, I've 3 or 4 sort of things that are kind of in the hopper. And I don't know what I'm going to complete. I truly don't. It is a bit of a mystery to me.
Okay, so you have a couple things on the go. So obviously everyone wants to know if Molly will be the central character, and it's any one of those things have Molly back or not?
Yes, one of those things is it has the seed of something in this world for sure, with some Molly in it. But what I can say is that, you know, it was my goal with this book to leave the reader wanting more. I mean, that I want that to happen. I want you to feel, oh, this is wonderful. I want more of this. But the question is, can I give you more without, you know, you being disappointed? And that is a creative problem that I, as a writer, have to solve. And, you know, if I can find a way to solve it, then there will be more Molly.
Very good, because we had all kinds of fun at the book club imagining all the characters that could be spun off. I totally wanted the deadbeat dad to come back and, you know, to steal all her, you know, her new Fabergé nest egg. And then there was someone else who was like, oh, no, it's got to be Giselle. She's just, you know, off on some fancy island drinking big cocktails with umbrellas, and something happens to her because now she's got, you know, she's got this money. And yeah, who else did we want? We wanted her, Giselle. Oh yeah, and the first Mrs. Black for sure. But I have to say, Rodney was like great. I loved his smarmy snakiness, right? You knew exactly, like any woman who's ever met the player has met Rodney, right?
Yeah, he is definitely a type that, I think we all know him. I don't know many women who have not met a Rodney.
Yeah. So let's talk about hotels for a minute, because I love hotels. I love hotel bars. I love their lobbies. They're all different, but they do have this grandness to them. What's the one hotel that you never stayed in you want to stay in?
Oh my goodness. Well, the first thing to know about me is that, I don't actually stay in a whole lot of 5-star hotels. Just putting that out there.
Publishing, Canadian publishing industry.
Yeah, like, no. But the good thing about the publishing industry is that you can step into them for, say, a drink
Yes.
with an author, or just frequent the lobby bar or whatever. And I agree with you. There's a mystique to the world of hotels that is sort of alluring, and that really does fascinate me. And of course, for a mystery writer, as a setting, it just offers that locked room sensibility.
Mhm.
And a sense of openness in public space and private spaces behind closed doors where anything can happen.
So we talked about, I know you edit, like I mentioned Ruth Ware and Liz Nugent, but let's talk about the mystery genre for a minute, because people were quite interested in you recommending books. So give us a couple names for mystery writers that you think are doing interesting things. I personally love, I don't know if she's yours or not, but I love Louise Candlish. I just really recently
She's
discovered.
mine.
There you go.
Thank you. Louise Candlish is amazing. So in North America, we have 2 books out with her, The Other Passenger and The Heights, which just published about a week ago, actually.
Yeah, I have to get my hands on that. I don't have it yet.
Oh, well, I can help with that. Taken care of. And, she's a thriller writer. I wouldn't say she's a mystery writer, but she's a thriller writer. And she handles domesticity with such a keen eagle eye, and the lives of women and the roles of women are examined so finely. And so yeah, I would agree that Louise Candlish is amazing. I think if readers out there are looking for another book that is in maybe the spirit of mine, I don't know if anyone out there has read Richard Osman. But
I just read the Thursday murder. What's it called?
The Thursday Murder Club.
Yes.
Yeah. So he has 2 books, British writer and former, or maybe still TV celebrity.
Yes.
He's like
yes.
the Alex Trebek of Britain or whatever. I don't know. And he's a phenomenal and funny, cozy mystery writer. And I enjoy his work very much.
Yeah, I love I mean, it's set in a retirement home, and it's so good because it's, these people are still alive, not only alive, they're kicking, they're just like solving mysteries. And there's a former investigator for, I don't know, MI6 or something. So they're living the life, plus they're doing all this cool stuff. So I thought it was really well done.
Yes, it's clever.
Okay, so I think that's it. We don't have any more questions tonight. So I really want to thank you, Nita, for joining us. It was just so much fun to talk to you. Always a pleasure. And can't wait to see what you're doing next. You need to tell us first, okay?
All right, I will come to you first, Kim. Don't you worry. Thank you so much for having me on. And thank you, all of you amazing readers out there, for joining us.
Okay, take care. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.